kids to do. Hey, this is Thursday, October 15th and Friday, October 16th, and we're going to be finishing our story of Black Cat in the advanced class. We're going to talk about Charles. We're going to get into a quiz. We're going to talk about both disturbing and dismembering, which may be the theme for today. Let's see, blah, blah, bloody blah. Picture the hall pass. I gave that kid that one. By the way, Colleen, what should every kid have already done with their hall pass? Nicely done, Colleen. Written their name on it. On the off chance you were to leave your hall pass somewhere, I could easily get it back to you. Just like with your Black Cat paper, so you would not have to buy a new one on the off chance you were irresponsible and left it somewhere. You've written your first and last name on it, he says, responsible children, to try and help them. And then picture, we took our, oops, I got to check off the picture, kid. So now Evie has been added to the picture. Maddie, thank you for sending me the picture of you. I have now added it to my collection. And so nicely done for you. And the IXL F.1 has been officially assigned. But again, it's going to connect to the quiz we're going to get to today. My goal, fingers crossed, depending on how much time you guys try to slow me down, you should be able to finish quiz today. You should only have to worry about it after class as if you're one of the kids who are going to do it a second time, if you were wanting to try and improve your grade. And I did tell you guys that you can see your answers or see the wrong answers. Yeah. So let me make sure I told you guys that. So yeah, if you want to take it a second time, you can see the wrong answers and take the higher of the two. Fingers crossed, it's going to help you guys improve grades. That's my goal, at least. All right. Then, let's see, we got into beginning of Black Cat. Do we know main character's name? No. What do we know about, at the beginning of story, what do we know? How does he describe himself personality-wise? Nicely done. He's an animal lover, and he's friendly. Let's see, animal lover, and then, oh, and he's married. How does his wife feel about animals? They're chill. And then let's see. Then he starts making poor choice. And what is poor choice? We're going to go with the alcoholic part. I mean, I agree that the stabbing of a cat probably does qualify, but that's not like an ongoing poor choice. It's more the alcoholism is the poor choice. And what kind of alcoholic is he? Right, he's the mean, and sometimes you have like the happy, wee, high-fivey ones. Then you have the ones like grr, stabby ones, and apparently he's more in the grr, stabby area. And then not the grr, stabby one. Then we got to his, what is Black Cat's name? Pluto. Where does the name Pluto come from? There we go. The whole Roman mythology, the god of the dead and stuff like that, which we're going to find out is a foreshadowing clue to a thing coming up later. And we got to the Pluto and the god of the dead. Oh, and then he makes a poor choice with Cat. And what, when he comes home drunk, what does he do? There we go. Ends up cutting out the cat's eye. Then he decides to double down on poor choice. And what does he do after that? And that's where he puts the noose around. And where does he hang Cat? Right outside of his house. That's going to play a role in this next part in just a moment. Then, oh, and why does he do this thing? Or the same reason that you guys make poor choices, like not putting names on. Colleen, they all stole your answer. They got all excited. Apparently, Colleen is their activation word. Who knew? So the whole, because, yes, Colleen? Nicely done. The more you're told not to do a thing, the more you tend to want to do it. And he knew it was a bad thing, so he did it anyway. And then apparently Karma decided to slap him upside his face, because what does Karma do? Burn down house. Now, don't worry, as I said before, we are still at the very beginning of Rising Action. Him stabbing Cat, him killing Cat, we are still at the start of all of this. And house burning down, still at the start of all of this. Now, we're on third column, partway down. Russ? Because there's more fun story coming. Don't know which one to tell you. I'm not the one that wrote it. All right. So we're now at the part where house has burnt down, And we're now going to have the drawback to burn down housey bits. We have noose. All right, wait one second. All right, back cat again. I am above the weakness of seeking to establish a sequence of cause and effect between the disaster and the crime. I am detailing a chain of facts and wish not to leave even a possible link imperfect. Okay, on the day after the fire, I visit, oh wait, what's our point of view? I just saw that. So I visited the ruins of my house. The walls, with one exception, had all fallen in. This exception was found with a closet wall, not very thick, which stood in about the middle of the house, and against which had rested the head of my bed. The plaster had resisted the destruction of the fire, a fact which I attributed to its having been recently spread. About this wall, a dense crowd of people was collected, and many of them seemed to be examining a particular portion of it with very eager attention. The words strange, extraordinary, and other similar expressions grabbed my curiosity. I approached and saw, as if imprinted upon the white surface, the figure of a gigantic cat. The impression was done with an accuracy that was truly marvelous. There was even a rope about the animal's neck. A quick pause, because Poe can be sometimes hard to understand. So he came back to the house after the house burns down. There is one wall standing. And on this one wall, when he returns, there is a crowd standing in the ruins of his house, all standing around this one wall, going, ooh, ah, ee. Because what is on one wall? So not a cat, but the impression of a cat. So it's like, you guys ever played Play-Doh, where you can like smash into it and then you pull it back out? That's what's on the wall, where it looks like there's like an impression of a cat, but not just a cat. What's the bonus? It's got the noose around its neck. So it is a cat that is smashed on there with a noose around its neck, smashed into this wall. So all the people are like, whoa, and they're all staring at it. Don't worry, it's gonna get weird. Well, the reason he was crying, Matt, is because he knew it was a bad thing to do. Just like when kids sneak out at night and their friends are like, aren't you going to get in trouble? And they're like, I am. Like, don't you think that's dumb? And they're like, it is. Like, are you doing it anyway? I am. He just went the extreme version. So sometimes people do bad things because they're just dumb. So yeah. When I first beheld, you have to wait a second. When I first beheld this ghostly sign, for I could scarcely regard it as anything less, my wonder and my terror were extreme. The cat, I finally remembered, had been hung in a garden adjacent to the house. Upon the alarm of fire, this garden had been immediately filled by the crowd of people. And someone, I don't know, must have cut the animal from the tree and then thrown it through an open window into my bedroom. This had probably been done with the idea of waking me from sleep. The falling of other walls had smashed the victim of my cruelty into the substance of the freshly spread plaster, the chemicals of which, with the flames and the ammonia from the carcass, had then accomplished the image as I saw it. Although I had found a logical explanation for what I'd seen, it did not fail to make a deep impression upon my imagination. For months, I could not rid myself of the specter of the cat, and during this period, there came back into my soul a half feeling that seemed close to, but was not quite, remorse. I went so far as to regret the loss of the animal and to look about me among the dreadful places which I now frequently visited for another pet of the same species and of somewhat similar appearance with which to replace it. Two big things there. He comes up with a perfectly normal explanation for why there's a wall in his house with this cat smashed against it. What's his explanation? No. Perfect sense. He says, obviously, house caught on fire, cat was hanging in tree outside of that. People came into my yard because they saw the house was on fire, and they went, oh my God, how do we wake this person up? Does anyone have a cat on a string? And people looked around, and they go, look, there's a cat hanging from that tree. And someone said, genius. And they cut the cat down, wee, 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 and then threw it through the house in an attempt to wake him up. Because everyone knows that's how you wake someone when their house is on fire. You throw a cat through the window. Obviously, the cat then hit the wall, stuck there, everything burned, cat burned away, left an impression. He goes, yep, that makes perfect sense to me. And that is his explanation for how this thing got on the wall. And he does begin to miss the cat. So much so, what does he decide to do? He decides the best way to make himself feel better is to get a new cat. So he brings in new kitty cat. JC. Noose. Yeah, that's the internet. Sure. I don't know. I didn't tie it. It was the internet. Fascinating. All right. So now I have new cat. So now he's looking for a new cat to replace old cat because he got sad after, because in cases, if this house were to burn down again, how is anyone going to wake him up without a cat to throw through the window? Makes perfect sense. What? I would never do. One night, as I sat half stupefied in a local bar, my attention was suddenly drawn to some black object resting upon the head of one of the immense barrels of gin or rum, which was the main furniture of the place. I've been looking steadily at the top of this barrel for some time, and what now surprised me was the fact that I had not sooner noticed the object there. I approached it and touched it with my hand. It was a black cat, a very large one, nearly as large as Pluto, and closely resembling him in every aspect but one. Pluto had not a white hair upon any part of his body. This cat had a large splotch of white covering nearly the whole region of his chest, hence that picture. So new cat that he sees has giant white mark right in the little chest area. Upon my touching him, he immediately arose, purred loudly, rubbed against my hand, and appeared delighted with my attention. This, then, was the very creature of which I was in search. I at once offered to purchase it off the bartender, but he made no claim to it. He knew nothing of it, had never even seen it before. So I continued to pet it, and when I prepared to go home, the animal seemed to want to follow me. I allowed it to do so, occasionally stopping and patting it as I went. When it reached the house, it made itself quite comfortable at once and immediately became a great favorite with my wife. So what does he have now? A new cat. Nothing but good stuff can come from this. He has regretted all of his previous choices. Remember that? He felt really sad for a day, and that's all it takes to heal somebody. Kyra. Yeah, I think it's really hard to hide that when there's a cat hanging in a tree outside your house. Yes, because dogs do that. I've got a feeling, remember, with him drinking, who does he abuse? Yeah, so I got a feeling that's probably one of the first clues. Carson?
I'm confused why his wife is.
Trust me, as the story continues, those questions will only get stronger. You think it, never mind. For my own part, I soon found, remember, what has he been wanting this whole time? What did he just get? Everything should be good. For my own part, I soon found a dislike to it arising within me. This was just the opposite of what I had anticipated, but I know not how or why it was, I became disgusted by its evident fondness of me. By slow degrees, these feelings of disgust and annoyance rose into the bitterness of hatred. I avoided the creature, a certain sense of shame and the remembrance of my former deed of cruelty, preventing me from physically abusing it. I did not, for some weeks, strike or otherwise violently abuse it, but gradually, very gradually, I came to look upon it with unimaginable loathing and to flee silently from its revolting presence as from the breath of a plague. How does he feel about new cats? Don't worry, keep paying attention. What added, no doubt, to my hatred of the beast was the discovery on the morning after I brought it home that, like Pluto, it also had lost one of its eyes. This circumstance, however, only endeared it to my wife, who possessed that feeling towards animals which had once been my distinguishing trait and the source of my simplest and purest pleasures. So new cat, white spot, and hook, also missing an eye. I got it. That's how cat eyes work. They're connected. With my hatred for this cat, however, its attraction toward me seemed to increase. It followed my footsteps with an insistence that would be difficult to make the reader comprehend. Whenever I sat, it would crouch beneath my chair or spring upon my knees, covering me with its loathsome purring. If I arose to walk, it would get between my feet and thus nearly trip me up, or fastening its long and sharp claws in my clothes, climb in this manner to my chest. At such times, although I wanted to destroy it with a single blow, I was still stopped from doing so, partly by a memory of my former crime, but chiefly, let me confess it at once, by my absolute fright of the beast. Two things. We have irony here, because the more he hates the cat, what happens? The more he hates it, the more the cat cuddles with him more, and the more the cat cuddles with him, how does he feel? So it becomes a never-ending cycle of irony. Where the cat cuddles him, he hates cat, cat loves him more. So we have the one-eyed cat with a little blotch, and now he's beginning to become afraid of cat because cat is not afraid of him. Person.
Why would he have not gotten arrested?
One, it was a long time ago, and so this was back in the 1800s when Poe was alive. And two, unfortunately, they didn't really have a cruelty to animals thing back then. And three, there was no evidence. Maybe the cat hung itself.
Exactly.
Right. Or it was the dog next door. You know how Kyra's next door neighbor dog is? JC. I do not know what happened to his other pets, Maddie. I'm assuming he keeps abusing them. It's just the black cat is the one that causes most of the issues. Sophia, what's up?
Why wouldn't like the neighbors or anything be suspicious that there's a cat hanging from a tree?
You know how things were in the 1800s with their decorations? I have no idea. I thought the same thing. They just sort of roll right along with a lot of these issues. JC again? I agree. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. Colleen? Okay. She says it's because it's in first person and we don't know what the neighbors think. I think it's because I have to keep going because we have to get to the good part of the story still. Because if not, you guys will keep yelling at me and we haven't even gotten to the good stuff. The dread was not exactly a dread of a physical evil, and yet I should be at a loss how otherwise to define it. I am almost ashamed to own. Yeah, wait, what is going to happen to him tomorrow? I am almost ashamed to own. Yes, even in my current felon cell, I am ashamed to own that the terror and horror with which the animal inspired me have been heightened to a level it would be almost impossible to think of. So where is he right now? What kind of cell? What does a felon cell mean? He is in jail and going to die tomorrow. Mr. Broviak, you said he hasn't done anything yet to get him killed. Yep. My wife had called my attention more than once to the shape of the mark of white hair, which was the only visible difference between the strange beast and the one I had destroyed. Now, the reader will remember that this mark, although large, had been originally quite indefinite, like this one, just random splotchy thing. But by slow degrees, not us yet, degrees nearly unnoticeable, in which for a long time my brain struggled to reject as simply imagination, its outline had taken on a more definite shape. It was now the depiction of an object that I shudder to name. And for this, above all, I loathed and dreaded and would have rid myself of the monster had I dared. It was now, I say, the image of a hideous, of a ghastly thing, of the gallows, a mournful and terrible engine of horror and crime, of agony and death. Quick pause. You guys know what gallows are? You ever played a game called Hangman?
Yeah.
Draw, rar, rar, rar. That's a gallows. That's what a gallows is. So now that white spot that used to be just a blotch over the course of him living has now slowly morphed into this kind of shape. Why would this shape bother him? Because what did he do? He hung the cat. Now the cat is back, and now the white spot has formed a little thing in front of him. Yes? No, I think this was a thing you do on the inside of you not to hang a cat with a noose. At least I knew that. Maybe him not so much. Kyra!
Okay, so I remember when my people wanted to walk into it. Okay, so you know how he's in jail, right?
Yes.
And then the death penalty.
Yes.
He probably did something to do that, and that's how he's gonna.
Excellent. I've
When
heard.
did he go to jail?
He hasn't gone to jail yet. Well, he's telling me the story from jail. It's a flashback we're doing right now, so we've not found the part where he's in jail yet. Yes, Nate?
I have two questions.
Uh-huh.
Is that a real game that I can buy?
Hangman?
No.
I have no idea. Again, Google.
And then the second question is, does that pencil work?
Right. And Sophia, what's up?
This is kind of a weird question, but do people do we still use those as like a punishment? Like where you
The gallows and the hanging, they stopped using that a while ago. Now they have like the chemical injection and stuff like that. So no, because it didn't always work. Sometimes you'd hang and they like sit there and kick and twitch. People like, and they'd freak out. So no, they stopped doing that a long time ago. All right. Beneath the pressure of torments such as these, the frail remains of the good that was within me gave way. So he's saying, after seeing this, whatever goodness that was left in him is now gone. I didn't think there was any. There was some there, and now it's gone. Evil thoughts became my only comforts. The darkest and most evil of thoughts, the moodiness of my usual attitude increased into a hatred of all living things and of all mankind. And my uncomplaining wife was the most usual and the most patient of sufferers of these outbursts. One day, she accompanied me upon some household errand into the basement of the old building which our poverty had forced us to live in. The cat followed me down the steep stairs and, nearly tripping me, infuriated me into madness, lifting a nearby axe and forgetting in my wrath the childish dread which had so far stopped me. I aimed a blow at the animal, which of course would have proved instantly fatal had it gone as I wished. But this blow was stopped by the hand of my wife. Aggravated by the interference into a blinding rage, I withdrew my arm from her grasp and buried the axe in her brain. She fell dead upon the spot without even a groan. The hideous murder accomplished, I set about the task of concealing the body. You know, as you do after killing your wife. I knew that I could not back up for a quick second. What happened to his wife? Now, why does he kill wife? Because again, they're going down and the cat goes between his feet, as cats do. And he's like, cat! And he goes and grabs axe, tries to kill cat, and wife is like, no, don't you kill the kitty cat. He's like, fine, no kitty cat. Wife! And hits her right in the head. She's like, you got me! And then down she goes. Now, killed her so quickly, there was no chance for her to react to it. Now, she be dead. But don't worry, we still have more. And I've learned not to call on you, so you're out of luck. This hideous murder accomplished, I set about the task of concealing the body. I knew that I could not remove it from the house, either by day or by night, without the risk of being seen by the neighbors. Many ideas entered my mind. At one period, I thought of cutting the corpse into tiny pieces and destroying them by fire. At another, I resolved to dig a grave for it in the floor of the basement. Then I hit upon what I considered a far better method. I determined to wall it up in the cellar, as the monks of the Middle Ages are thought to have walled up their victims. So he has to get rid of body. His first thought is chopping it into little pieces. And he's like, no, that's a bad idea. He's like, ooh, we'll just bury it in the floor. And he's like, no, that's a bad idea. So he comes up with a better idea where he's going to put it into the wall, pull out some wall plankings, put body in there, put wall plankings back up, and just leave it in the wall. He's like, that's a genius idea. For a purpose such as this, the basement was well tailored. Its walls were loosely constructed, meaning you can easily pull the planks off, and had been plastered throughout with a rough plaster, which the constant dampness of the basement had prevented from hardening. Moreover, in one of the walls was a hollow area caused by a false chimney or fireplace that had been filled up and made to resemble the rest of the basement. I made no doubt that I could readily remove the bricks in this part, insert her corpse, and wall the hole up as before so that no one could detect anything suspicious. And in this calculation, I was not wrong. With a crowbar, I easily dislodged the bricks and, having carefully placed the body against the inner wall, I propped it in that position while, with little trouble, I relaid the bricks and wall as it had originally stood. Having bought mortar, sand, and hair, that's how you make the stuff for the walls, I prepared a new plaster which could not be distinguished from the old. And with this, I very carefully went over my fresh brickwork. When I had finished, I felt sure that it was perfect. The wall did not have the slightest appearance of having been broken. The rubbish on the floor was picked up with care. I looked around triumphantly and said to myself, here at least then my work has not been in vain. And there we stop before we go to lunch, because we're not going to get to the next part because you guys are going to eat food. Sophia, what?
What about the smell?
Good question. Don't worry. We'll get to those issues. Story not over yet. Elena?
Now I don't want to eat.
Oh, don't worry. You'll want to eat before we get to the end of the story because we're not to the bad part yet. I know. Mr. Broviak, how would trust me, boo-boos. Ira. JC. Uh-huh. Well, we're going to say going to lunch. Those of you at home, I'm going to make you disappear, and then you're going to come. Wait, no, I'm not. I'm going to leave it going because if not, if I end it, it won't work. So I have to leave it going. We're just going to let you guys disappear. I'm going to pause. Hang on. Pause recording. Recording. Yay! And look at that. It's like we never left for lunch. So we're back to here. We found out. Oh, so for those of you who weren't paying attention before lunch, what happened to wife? And who killed wife? What did he use? Why does he kill her? By the way, that felt like the worst cheerleading cheer ever. What did he use? An axe! Why did he do it? To get the cat! But anyway, sorry, my own issue. So now we're back to here. Back on the backside, he is now, ooh, and where does he put the body? So he puts it into wall, which makes things even better. All right. Now he is happy and relaxed. Everything is good. He got rid of wife. He says, I'm in a happy place. He just has to get rid of cat, and everything will be perfect. Bottom of that second column where it says my next step. My next step was to look for the beast which had been the cause of so much misery. For I had at length firmly resolved to put it to death. Had I been able to meet with it at the moment, there could have been no doubt of its fate. But it appeared that the crafty animal had been alarmed at the violence of my previous anger, and it had decided to hide because of my present mood. It is impossible to describe the deep and blissful sense of relief which the absence of the detested creature created in me. It did not come out again the night, and thus for one night at least, since its introduction into the house, I soundly and calmly slept. Yes, I slept, even with the burden of murder upon my soul. So again, telling you what kind of person he is. Killed wife, cat is gone. He sleeps. He's like, I have now achieved happiness, and I slept for the first time in a long time. The second and the third day passed, and still my tormentor came not. Once again, I breathed as a free man. The monster, by the way, he's breathing as a free man. Where do we know he's telling this story from? So is that an example of?
Irony.
Good job. See, our example of irony. He's talking about here how he was breathing as a free man, and now we know what's happened to him. All right. The monster, in terror, had fled the house forever. I should behold it no more. My happiness was supreme. The guilt of my dark deed disturbed me very little. Some investigation into my wife's disappearance had been made, but these had been readily answered. Even a search for her had occurred, but of course, nothing was to be discovered. I looked upon my future freedom as entirely secure. Upon the fourth day of the assassination, the police came very unexpectedly into the house and again made a thorough investigation of the house. I felt safe, however, in knowing they would never discover my place of concealment. The officers asked me to accompany them in their search. They left no nook or corner unexplored, even the basement. The police were thoroughly satisfied and prepared to leave. The excitement in my heart was too strong to be restrained. So where are the police searching? Where did he bury wife? Have they found her? See, that's why he feels so confident. They're searching the basement. They can't find her. They get ready to leave. And he was like, ha ha, I am free. The excitement in my heart was too strong to be restrained. I burned to say but one word so I could secretly gloat and yet also convince them of my guiltlessness. Gentlemen, I said, talking to the police officers, as the cops climbed the steps, I'm happy to have dispelled your suspicions. I wish you all good health. By the by, gentlemen, this is a very well-constructed house. In the rapid desire to say something easily, I scarcely knew what I uttered at all. I may say an excellently constructed house. These walls, are you going already, gentlemen? These walls are solidly put together. And here, through the mere act of daring, I knocked heavily with a cane which I held in my hand upon that very portion of the brickwork behind which stood the corpse of my wife. So again, he takes his cane, this is my cane, and this is going to be the wall where she is. And again, to try and taunt the police, he's like, you're leaving? You can't find her? It's because she's not here, and this house is perfect. And then knocks on the wall right where she is buried. But may God shield and deliver me from the fangs of the evil beast. No sooner had the echoes of my blows sunk into silence than I was answered by a voice from within the tomb, by a cry at first muffled and broken like the sobbing of a child, and then quickly swelling into one long, loud, continuous scream, utterly abnormal and inhuman, a howl, a wailing shriek, half of horror, half of triumph, such as might have arisen only out of a nightmare, conjointly from the throats of the cursed in their agony, and of the demons that exult in their eternal torture. He knocked on wall. What comes out of wall? A scream. Out of the wall where he knocked on. As to my own thought, it is silly to speak of him. Swoon, by the way, who does he think is yelling from in there? His wife. Swooning, I staggered to the opposite wall. For one instant, the policemen upon the stairs remained motionless, frozen by their terror and awe. In the next, a dozen strong arms were tearing at the wall. It fell quickly. The corpse, already greatly decayed and clotted with gore, stood erect before the eyes of the crowd. Upon the corpse's head, with its gaping red mouth and solitary eye of fire, sat the hideous beast whose axe had seduced me into murder, and whose powerful voice will send me to the hangman. I had walled the monster up within the tomb. That's what we're going to get to. Yeah, try not to think about it.
I know he ate the corpse, but he died of thirst. Did he drink the blood?
So this would be a speaker who is right there, and again, he then knocks on wall to try and taunt the police because they're getting ready to leave. When he goes knock, 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 that's when all of a sudden we find out that she was buried behind. They come ripping down all of it, and that's where the cat had been the entire time. So now, why is he getting ready to die the next day?
Because he knows that he's being
So what? Why is he in jail? So now you know why he was arrested, why he is going to die, and all this stuff comes back.
Actually, he seemed really dead.
I mean, he was kind of. I mean, if he had not knocked on the wall, then he would have gotten away with it. But of course, he was trying to be sassy. And ironically, it is the knocking on the wall that was the thing that alerted the police to it in the first place. If he had just not done that, he could have gotten so much fun stuff. Plus, you have to worry about, was the cat really coming back to haunt him? Oh no! There's my arm. Yes?
In the Edgar Allan Poe story,
Uh-huh.
what is it with him and and what is it with him writing about people gloating about their murders?
Because it's part of human nature that people get sassy. Most criminals get caught because they speak to someone, because it's hard to keep the stuff inside of them. Foreshadowing things. So when he tells the reader that he's going to die tomorrow, why is he going to die? There you go. And then, why? Ooh. Him naming the cat Pluto is an example of both foreshadowing and sort of irony. Why is it what was Pluto the god of?
Death.
And what does this cat lead to?
Death.
There you go. So the fact that he named it death and then it leads to his own death, there you go. And then when the wife thinks the black cats might be witches at the very beginning, and he's like, that's superstitious and silly. Why would that be foreshadowing? Because again, cat comes back. For all we know, it might be a witch and the whole possessed. He keeps saying this is a very abnormal story. Definitely an abnormal story. Got that one. You've already covered that one. We did. And then the white sky. And then, ooh, with this one, with the whole Gallows, what did he do to Cat? Now, it's also foreshadowing. Why is it also foreshadowing? Because now he's going to get hung. So it becomes that thing where he hung Cat, and now he gets hung. So it becomes foreshadowing towards the end. And it doesn't look good. All right. Characters. I say, how many main characters would you say in the story? Let's back up. Who is main character? All right. We don't know his name. I would agree. And so, second main character?
Why?
I go with that same one. Third character? I think so too. I think I'd put the black cat. In this case, the animal would definitely qualify as a character. I mean, it does get him killed. It does play a big role in it, so I'd count it. Oh, who says there's two different cats? Maybe it's the same cat. Oh, that's the joy of the story. That's what we just call the black cat. Description of speaker that would not work for anybody else. That might work for black cat. Alcoholic killed. That would both work. I would agree. But I mean, but because it never. How do we know you're not an alcoholic? Because it's never mentioned in the story, so you can't just assume a thing. And for a wife, what would you say for her? But that could work for black cat also. I know. And it would work for the dude. Yeah. That creepy would work. Saying that the cat ate. Disturbing. Sasha? That would also work for me. I know. That's where it gets a little bit trickier. Jaden? That one would probably work. Nice little. What do I go for? I put patient wife. Black cat? What's that, globetrotter? Well, why did you just put man, girl, cat? Because you're a globetrotter. That would count. One eye, I would count. I went for. I put animals that make you magic. Nate? Careful. And then only it was in the story right in front of you. Setting when. Yeah, I'm trying to get like any evidence in the story. I don't think they really gave you that. Yeah. All right. You did something at nighttime. That's about it. For the where?
In the house. I know, in the basement.
In the basement? I think the house is really it, right? Oh. Where did, yeah, there you go. And the bar.
And the backyard. Like where he hung the cat.
That would count too. I could see that. It's for about the house. Ooh. The speaker's major decision?
Should I kill fly or should I not kill fly?
What was that?
I got you.
There's a lot of globetrotters in here all of a sudden.
Should I jump you
Sorry,
or not?
JC just confessed to being a globetrotter in front of everybody. It threw us off. That's why the kids at home were all like, we know what word not to use. Purple? Not bad. My only complaint with that would be, I don't think he ever decides to really kill the wife. He does make a decision to kill something, but, and that one I think would be a better one along that one. Other Olivia? Not bad. I would say that would definitely be a consideration in there, and we know which way that one went. Jaden? It's more of a chopping thing with an axe, but sure, getting kind of scary. Sido? Then let's go with big decision wife makes. So let's go with what is the last decision the wife makes? Olivia 3? I believe that would be the last decision that she makes. I went for the stay with him or get away, but I like switching it to the last decision that she gets a chance to make. Hopefully, external conflict is as big and obvious in this story as we can possibly make it. Let two things fight each other. And what word do we have to use? Now, I would count speaker. I would count speaker versus alcohol. I think that's a solid external conflict in the story. I would do probably speaker versus cat is a big one, but definitely. And then at the end of it, you have speaker versus wife for a split second. Wife versus really sharp axe for a split second. Get it? Sharp axe, split second. It wasn't, but thank you. Ooh. Oh, never mind. Point of view, that was easy. Words are hard. Oh. Theme, what are we supposed to learn? Speaker versus his own crazy. I think anything but along those alcoholic things and the whole, not looking into poor choices, don't abuse animals, stuff like that. Again. Skip that. This is what I want to go to. So now we're going to do our exposition, rising action, climax, falling action. Home children, you're going to get a chance to play again also. I apologize for not yelling at you guys enough. All right, ready? Is that, looks like is that a dancing chipmunk? All right, we have, I'll go through the reading to you. In a fit of anger, he attacks his wife with an axe. We discover the cat was in the wall the whole time. Speaker is an animal lover who is also an alcoholic. He buries his wife in the wall in order to hide her body, and Speaker starts attacking the cat and suffering from those choices. Apparently, words were not my friend. Number of exposition. Kids at home, looking at you. Are you dancing at me? All right, and then to there, and I would agree. We're done. After exposition is, so 1, 2, 4, 5. Now, we already used 3. You can vote for 3 if you want. I can make fun of you. All right, then, good job, home children. And I would agree, nicely done. And then our climactic moment. Okay, hopefully you'll kick out the climactic. And, all right. Nicely done. Again, hopefully anytime you're killing your wife with an axe should be a climactic moment. And then of the last 2, we're gonna have our falling action. And I agree again. And our last one that you all can now bet money on. Definitely 5. You bet all your money on 5. This is why you're not allowed to gamble. Then, with the story Charles, I figured I'd answer any questions you guys had about that before we got into actual quiz. Aside from, I didn't read it what happened, because I'm just going to talk about aliens. Nate?
I did not really understand what was happening because I couldn't really follow along with the story.
Then you'd have to, that's not a very specific question. The alien showed up, and the little kid that was running around with the squirt gun kept squirting the alien, but every time he hit him, little things kept flying off of him. And it turned out to be ironic because little things coming off him were the puppies. And the puppies were the things that came back to get him at the end.
Oh, that makes sense.
That's what I was going for. All right, purple.
When little kid comes back,
Larry. Uh-huh. Yes, it's called lying. When Larry comes back, talks about Charles, he is lying. That's what Larry does a lot of in the story about the aliens and the water gun. Squidkins. Yes, Squidkins. Well, if it's first person, what pronoun has to be used? So does it use I? Are you asking? Are you confused? Then if it uses I, what does it have to be? There you go. She asked, what was the point of view? I said, use first person, or does it use I? She said, yes. So we said it has to be first person. I know, she was speaking really loudly. He was telling stories, Larry's telling stories about himself and just making up the name Charles instead. Because if he doesn't make it up, who's going to get in trouble? So that's why he was like, there's a kid named Charles. There you go. Squidkins was realizing the fact that Larry was lying the entire story and making up all the things about Charles. Sito? No, how silly. I apologize for calling on you. Yes, Sito. Okay, go for it. Uh-huh. And so, yeah, there's definitely the foreshadowing as it gets closer to that big final scene and they have the talk between her and the teacher. Absolutely, where she starts talking about all the issues that Larry had. And if those of you paying attention, be like, those are the same issues that Charles had. Weird, they must have been best friends. Yes, best friends. So good of friends, they were the same person. You know how kids are. Squiddy. Uh-huh. A little bit, absolutely. So the irony being that she keeps talking about trying to meet that mom, and it turns out she is the mom. That'd be ironic, yes. And the fact that she keeps talking about how bad that Charles kid is and how great her kid is, when her kid is, yeah, there you go again. Nicely done. My goal is to give you enough time to finish quiz. So hopefully you get it done before you leave now. So I'm going to have you start quiz now. That's the idea. Plenty of time to take a quiz. Unless you've not read story, then it'll definitely be a little bit tougher on you. We're going to go with now, and then we're going to use later now for the retake. And then later is going to be like when you guys have break. Have a show, do that? Yes. Just like it'll say, so to get to it again, you have 3 different locations to get to on there. And when you get to it, you go clicky where it tells you the score you have to have, when it's going to be due. It also reminds you, or should tell you, that if you submit the first one, it'll tell you which answers were wrong, which will hopefully, my goal is to make things easier to get better grade. If things go well, my dream is for all of you to test out of the F.1. So what wrong? I was talking about the spacker.
Wait, where? I don't see it. In the first question.
We're all excited.
Oh, I'm not on the
He's not gotten to number 1 yet. How are you so far?
I bet you started it. When you studied this quiz,
Yes, thank you, Maddie. They've already yelled at me about spackering. I've had to unspacker the first one, so if you refresh it, it's
Mr. Broviak, how high do we have to test in order to get out of the quiz? IXL.
It'd say right in the directions at the top of the page, he says not having to make fun of a kid. As she gives him the shady side eye. Once you've submitted it, Elena, you're good to go. You just have to make sure you submit it before you leave. Staring creepily into the camera is just optional.
Okay, bye.
So we don't know what she was looking like, right? But she was staring into the camera and then she's like, oh, okay.
Well, she had texted me first saying, "What should we do when we're done?" And I said, "Creepily stare into the camera." So I just started staring into it. She was like, "That's why I was trying to be nicer to her." I don't understand why some teachers don't enjoy this job. It's the best. I hate you guys. I still enjoy it. Feels like you're imitating one pretty well. Nate. Those of you who are not Nate, don't make me. What? Yes. But the H space A, S? No. 2. Oh, I did that one too, yeah. If you refresh, it should be gone now. I want to dance on your tears. Oh, I should probably stop recording. That was awkward.